The Senate will please come to order. Please join me in a moment of silence today in lieu of a devotional. Thank you. We'll begin this afternoon with announcements. Are there any announcements? Are there any announcements? Senator from Caledonia?
Well, Madam President, I was going to make an announcement and I've lost the bill number.
I think the bill number is H435.
Thank you, Madam President. I would ask that the Committee on Institutions be relieved of H435 and that the bill be referred to the Committee on Government Operations. The reason for that, Madam President, is that the bill, as it turns out, is all policy, and your Institutions Committee does not deal with that in its jurisdiction. Thank you, Madam President.
Thank you, Senator. The senator from Caledonia has moved that the Committee on Institutions be relieved of H435 and that the bill be committed to the Committee on Government Operations. Are you ready for the question? The senator from Chittenden is recognized. Senator Lyons.
Thank you, Madam President. May we just hear the title of the bill? Thank you.
Yes. H435, an act relating to miscellaneous Department of Corrections related amendments. Again, the question is, shall the bill be moved from the Committee on Institutions to the Committee on Government Operations? Are you ready for the question? Kindly unmute. All those in favor, please signify by saying aye.
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 Those opposed, nay. The ayes have it, and you've relieved the Committee of Institutions of H435, an act relating to miscellaneous Department of Corrections related amendments, and committed the bill to the Committee on Government Operations. We have one Senate bill for introduction today.
Yes, we do.
S-133, an act relating to authorizing the probate division to reopen guardianship proceedings to correct or remedy manifest injustice, introduced by Senator Hooker. Please listen to the first reading of the bill.
S-133, an act relating to authorizing the probate division to reopen guardianship proceedings to correct or remedy manifest injustice.
You've heard the first reading of the bill, and the bill is referred to the Committee on Judiciary. We have 5 House bills for reference. H210, an act relating to addressing disparities and promoting equity in the healthcare system, introduced in the House on February 9th, 2021. Please listen to the first reading.
H210, an act relating to addressing disparities and promoting equity in the healthcare system.
You've heard the first reading, and the bill is referred to the Committee on Health and Welfare. H436, an act relating to miscellaneous changes to Vermont tax laws, introduced in the House on March 23rd, 2021. Please listen to the first reading.
H436, an act relating to miscellaneous changes to Vermont's tax laws.
You've heard the first reading, and the bill is referred to the Committee on Finance. H437, an act relating to changes that affect the revenue of the state, introduced in the House on March 23rd, 2021. Please listen to the first reading.
H437, an act relating to changes that affect the revenue of the state.
You've heard the first reading, and the bill is referred to the Senate Rules Committee. H438, an act relating to capital construction and state bonding, introduced in the House on March 23rd, 2021. Please listen to the first reading.
H 438, an act relating to capital construction and state bonding.
You've heard the first reading. Excuse me, John. You've heard the first reading, and the bill is referred to the Committee on Institutions. H 439, an act relating to making appropriations for the support of government, introduced in the House on March 23rd, 2021. Please listen to the first reading.
H 439, an act relating to making appropriations for the support of government.
You've heard the first reading, and the bill is referred to the Committee on Appropriations.
Vanessa? Thank you. Sorry.
Okay. This brings us to the orders of the day. We have on the calendar for third reading, S10. Third reading was ordered yesterday, March 30th, 2021. Are there any amendments before third reading? The senator from Chittenden, Senator Sorokin, is recognized.
Thank you, Madam President. It was my understanding that the senator from Franklin had an amendment he wanted to present.
Thank you, Senator. The senator from Franklin, Senator Brock, is recognized for his amendment.
Thank you, Madam President. There is an amendment. I believe it was provided to everyone by email by Secretary Bloomer earlier today. This is an amendment to S10, and the amendment is on the issue of fraud and improper payments. An improper payment, by definition, is a sum of money delivered to an individual from the unemployment insurance fund that is either an overpayment or a payment that that person should not get. Fraud is a form of overpayment that involves knowingly and willfully providing false information or otherwise obtaining monies from the unemployment fund fraudulently. The background of this amendment is fairly simple. During fiscal 19, Vermont's unemployment insurance fund had a 4.3% improper payment rate, and that's primarily due to overpayments. And during the period from 2010 through 2019, the unemployment insurance program made an estimated $55 million in improper payments, mostly overpayments, and some of those payments were, in fact, due to fraud. While we have in the Department of Labor multiple program integrity tools, there are some that appear to be missing. For example, we do not currently use the Integrity Data Hub run by the National Association of State Workforce Agencies, something that the U.S. Department of Labor highly recommends and that many of our neighboring states use. My understanding is that Vermont will be adopting that and the department will be using that data hub very, very soon. Between the third quarter of FY17 and the first quarter of 2020, Vermont made nearly $6 million in unemployment insurance overpayments, but managed only to collect about 2,000 or to recover about 2 million of those overpayments, meaning that 1 in 3 were not recovered. Our overpayment recovery rate during that period was lower than the U.S. average and more than 5% below the recovery rate in New Hampshire and more than 43% below the recovery rate for Maine. According to the U.S. Department of Labor's Inspector General, the rate of unemployment fraud across the United States is projected to increase by as much as 10 times during 2020 and 2021. And reflecting that national trend, Vermont's Department of Labor has warned that fraud was increasing sharply in early 2020 and reported fraudulent phishing attempts in November 2020. That said, what this bill does is it allows for and requires a study to be conducted in a number of areas and with a report back to the General Assembly by November 15 and 21, and the purpose of which is to allow sufficient time for legislation, if any, to be introduced in the 2022 session. If you take a look at the amendment itself, I'll go through it very, very quickly. The amendment inserts section 11 through 13 in S10. Section 11 deals with unemployment insurance fraud, overpayments, detection, and prevention, and a report on that. It requires a written report regarding the detection and prevention of unemployment insurance fraud and the reduction and effective recovery of overpaid unemployment insurance payments. And the report is designed to first review existing practices for detecting fraud and preventing claimants from intentionally misrepresenting or knowingly failure to disclose material facts. It's required to include effective strategies and measures employed by other states to detect fraud, to identify potential actions for improving the department's ability to detect fraud and prevent claimants from intentionally misrepresenting or knowingly failure to disclose material facts, includes actions for improving the departments to effectively communicate with claimants regarding reporting requirements. One of the issues that is quite apparent regarding many of the improper payments that we have is they often result from a lack of communication or miscommunication or misunderstanding on the part of employees rather than overt or outright fraud. The department is asked to identify additional resources, including staffing, funding, technology, and training that may be necessary to improve claimants' ability to fully and accurately provide the department with the information that it needs. It would examine the extent to which overpayments flagged as fraud are attributable to intentional fraud as opposed to claimant errors. It will identify the number of fraud determinations that are appealed and the percentage of those determinations that are reversed following appeal. And it will examine and identify where it may be appropriate to refer these frauds for criminal prosecution. One of the big problems that we see right now is that where there is fraud, and there have been some extensive cases of fraud that have been identified, but right now, none of them are being referred to criminal prosecution. In one case, we learned of a fraud that involved some $70,000 of money stolen from the fund in a multi-part scheme by a claimant, and no criminal prosecution occurred. With respect to the overpayment generally that is not fraudulent in nature, many of the same things are being requested. Reviewing existing practices for preventing, reducing, and collecting overpayments. And the easiest way to prevent overpayments and fraud is by not allowing them to happen and having procedures in place to effectively prevent them from happening in the first place. And this requires a study to help us identify such things and to do it. And then also includes recommendations that we're looking for from the study to the General Assembly as to whether or not additional measures by the legislature are necessary to identify what we should do to prevent and detect unemployment insurance fraud and our ability to reduce or more effectively recover overpaid unemployment insurance benefits. There are two other studies that are underway that we passed in the last session in Act 85 of 2020. And that particular act dealt with the issue of employee misclassification, both for unemployment insurance and also for workers' compensation. By misclassification, we mean where typically an employer fails to identify the individual as an employee as they rightfully should, so that the taxes or claims, or our contributions are not being made in the first place, or some other measure that's fraudulent in nature regarding the failure to provide information. These two studies are underway, and they had a date to be due back to the legislature of January 15 of 2022. And on those two studies, we've moved in this amendment, moved those dates back to November 15, the object of which is to have them come in at the same time that the fraud and improper payment study come back so that they can be dealt with in a single fashion, and also with sufficient time to propose legislation to be introduced in 2022 if the reports indicate that it's necessary and the committees to whom this information goes believe that it is appropriate. That, in a nutshell, is the amendment. The amendment was reviewed by the committee, and the Committee of Economic Development, Housing, and General Affairs viewed that amendment favorably. We also consulted in drafting the amendment with the Attorney General's office, the Office of Sheriffs and State's Attorneys, the Vermont Legal Aid, as well as the department, all of which concurred. Thank you, Madam President.
Thank you, Senator. The question is, shall the bill be amended as moved by the senator from Franklin? The senator from Chittenden, Senator Sirotkin, is recognized.
Thank you, Madam President. I wasn't planning to speak on this amendment, though I am a co-sponsor of the amendment. I just want to make sure there's no misunderstanding. This is a study to find out more about the situation of overpayments as much as it is about fraud. We do not know in terms of how much of the overpayments that exist in our fund, which is very comparable to the rest of the country, is due to miscommunication, misunderstanding, errors by the department, as well as errors by claimants. We have a similar study ongoing for employers that misclassify their workers and 1099 their workers. And to the extent we're paying out more than we should, whether it's by innocent mistake or by fraudulent activities, we should have that information in hand. But I think the one thing I want to comment on is the comment by the senator from Franklin that fraudulent behavior in 2021 to 22 is predicted to go up tenfold. That is almost entirely the result of phishing and people from out of state taking advantage of the COVID situation, and it's not on behalf of innocent single persons filing their unemployment claim. Thank you, Mr. President.
Madam President.
Madam President, excuse me.
The question is, shall the bill be amended as moved by the senator from Franklin? Are you ready for the question? The senator from Bennington, Senator Campion, is recognized.
Thank you, Madam President. I apologize if I missed this, but did the committee review the amendment, and is there a committee recommendation?
I'd like the Senator from Franklin answer that.
Senator from Franklin is recognized.
Thank you, Madam President. The committee did review and voted favorably on the amendment on a vote which was 3-1-1.
Thank you, Madam President.
The question is, shall the bill be amended as moved by the senator from Franklin? The senator from Addison, Senator Hardy, is recognized.
Thank you, Madam President. May I inquire of the